The Mesozoic world is a place of contrasts, a stage of grandeur where giants thunder across the land, and yet, at the same time, a stage of whispers, of quiet lives hidden just out of sight. In the blazing light of day, it is the dinosaurs who seem to own the earth. Their immense bodies dominate the horizon, sauropods like living towers grazing upon treetops, predators like Allosaurus and Ceratosaurus stalking the undergrowth with predatory grace. The ground itself seems to shake with each passing step, each clash of tooth and claw echoing through valleys and forests. And yet, as imposing as this spectacle is, it is not the whole story. Beneath that thunderous surface lies another world, one made not of roars but of hushed rustles, not of towering frames but of fragile forms. It is the world of the small mammals, and though they dwell in shadows, they carry within them something profound, a quiet endurance, a warmth that persists through the long ages, and a legacy that will outlast the titans themselves. As the sun sinks low in the sky, painting the horizon in glowing bands of crimson and amber, the Mesozoic world begins its daily transformation. The fierce brilliance of the day dims into a softer glow, and long shadows stretch across the plains and forests. The air cools. Insects rise in clouds, their wings catching the last rays of light like flecks of fire drifting upward into the night. The giant reptiles, lords of daylight, slow their movements, heavy with exhaustion. A herd of stegosaurs settles among the cycads, tails curling like sleeping serpents. Immense sauropods lower their long necks and sigh into stillness, their bulk becoming indistinguishable from the silhouettes of trees. Predators slink into cover, bellies full, their watchful eyes finally closing. The world quiets, and into that silence comes a different rhythm. The night belongs to the small. From burrows tucked beneath tree roots, from hollow logs softened with moss, from the deep safety of earth-warmed tunnels, tiny whiskered faces emerge. Their eyes are large, round, and shining, lanterns of life tuned to the dark. Their ears flick and turn, catching every murmur of the wind. Their noses twitch, seeking the faintest hint of seeds, insects, or the musk of predators. They are cautious, yet driven, guided by instincts honed through generations of living in the shadow of giants. The forest floor, so still under the heavy gaze of daylight, now comes alive with subtle movements. A faint scurry across a patch of fallen leaves, the soft sound of tiny claws tapping on bark, the rhythmic crack of a seed being gnawed open. Beneath the hush of the night, there is a symphony of survival, a music so quiet it might be missed, if not for the patience to listen. Step into this moment, and you find yourself surrounded by intimacy. The air is cool against your skin, carrying the moist scent of soil freshly stirred by burrowing claws. Above, the stars shimmer through gaps in the canopy, scattered jewels against the deep velvet of night. A crescent moon rises, casting silver threads across the forest, catching on leaves and the fine whiskers of creatures darting between ferns. You crouch low, and suddenly you notice how much is happening beneath your feet. A dozen small lives weaving their way through the labyrinth of underbrush, each movement purposeful, each breath careful. These small mammals live with a kind of quiet wisdom. They know the danger of the open. They know the ground can shake, that shadows can grow teeth, that silence can break into the roar of a predator. And so they live in patience, moving swiftly but softly, seizing what the night offers, and retreating into burrows where warmth awaits. There, in little nests lined with moss and leaves, mothers curl around their young. Soft fur brushes against softer skin, tiny hearts beat fast beneath the safety of maternal warmth. Milk, the secret inheritance of mammals, nourishes the next generation, a bond of care and resilience that will one day come to define their lineage. The giants overhead may never notice these fragile creatures, yet the small mammals notice everything. The faintest tremor in the soil, the whisper of wind disturbed by wings, the musk of a predator carried on the air, all are signals woven into their nightly existence. In their size lies their strength. They can hide where no claw can reach, slip through roots where no teeth can follow. They are not conquerors, but caretakers of continuity. And so, while the dinosaurs roar and rule, the mammals persist in silence. Night after night, age after age, they live their lives unseen. And yet, every heartbeat, every whispered scurry, is a thread woven into the vast tapestry of Earth's story. For though their time has not yet come, though they remain hidden under the weight of thunder and shadow, they hold within them the quiet promise of tomorrow. Pause for a moment and imagine, Millions of years from this night, these whispers will become voices. These shadows will step into the light. The soft warmth carried in fur and blood will blossom into endless forms, wolves and whales, lions and deer, and even one day us. But here, in this ancient night, none of that is known. All that exists is the silence of giants sleeping and the rustling of small survivors beneath the stars. This is where our story begins, with whispers in the shadows, with the quiet endurance of creatures no larger than your hand, with resilience measured not in size or strength, but in patience, warmth, and care. This is the dawn of the small mammals, humble, hidden, and eternal. The day belongs to the giants. When the sun rises over the Mesozoic world, its light spills across a kingdom dominated by creatures so vast they seem like living mountains. A herd of sauropods moves slowly through a valley, their immense necks sweeping across the treetops like cranes of flesh and bone. Each step they take sends a shiver through the earth, a deep tremor that travels down into the roots, rattles loose stones, and sends ripples across shallow pools. To stand near them is to feel the ground alive beneath you, as though the planet itself were breathing through these colossal beings. But under this overwhelming spectacle, another world exists. It is not written in thunder, but in silence. It is a world so small it can vanish with a single misplaced step. Here, among the tangle of roots and the mats of ferns, the mammals live. They do not claim the horizon. They do not draw the eye. Instead, they thrive in the overlooked spaces, the cracks, the burrows, the leaf-littered shadows where no dinosaur foot can follow. Imagine yourself crouched low, your perspective shifted to their scale. The towering legs of a sauropod loom like tree trunks above you, blotting out the sky with each slow stride. A single foot descends, its weight pressing down with a sound like distant thunder. For a moment, the air itself seems to compress, rushing outward in a gust of dust and dry earth. But beneath the roots of a fern, just inches from where that vast foot settles, a whiskered nose twitches. A small creature, no larger than a mouse, darts into the underbrush, unnoticed, unscathed, living its quiet life beneath the giant's step. This is the rhythm of their world. The earth shakes, the shadows shift, the air fills with the scent of giants, and still they endure. While the sauropods graze on treetops and the predators stalk the open plains, the mammals slip between shadows, quick and unseen. Every moment is an act of awareness, ears pricked to the rumble above, eyes sharp for movement, paws pressed against soil that vibrates with the footsteps of beings thousands of times their size. And yet there is a kind of strange safety in this imbalance. The giants do not notice them. They do not need to. The dinosaurs are too large, too concerned with the towering trees and rival predators to care for the tiny rustlings beneath their feet. In this neglect, the mammals find their sanctuary. They live in the world of giants, but not with them. Instead, they carve out their existence in the margins, in the overlooked corners where survival depends not on strength, but on subtlety. Picture a burrow hidden at the base of a fallen log. Inside, the air is warm, rich with the smell of soil and moss. A family of mammals nestles close together, their fur brushing softly, their tiny bodies pressed against one another for comfort. The tremors of a passing herd rumble faintly through the walls, but the burrow holds steady, like a cradle beneath the earth. The giants above may shake the land, but they cannot reach into this safe place. For the mammals, life is lived in moments like this, listening, waiting, enduring until the noise fades. Above ground, the contrast is striking. A predator's roar may echo across the valley, shaking leaves from branches. Dinosaurs may clash in a storm of teeth and scales, but step closer to the roots, lean into the underbrush, and the tone changes. Here, there is the gentle scurry of paws over damp leaves, the muffled crunch of a beetle being cracked open between small jaws. The faint sound of claws scratching against bark as a mammal climbs just high enough to nibble on tender shoots hidden from the lumbering mouths of giants. The forest may tremble with power, but in its lowest layers, it hums with the soft persistence of smaller lives. And so day after day, age after age, this is how the mammals live, beneath giant footsteps. They do not challenge the rulers of their age, nor do they need to. Their strength lies in invisibility, in resilience, in the ability to slip through the cracks of a world not built for them. They are the quiet thread woven beneath the louder fabric of the Mesozoic, unseen yet enduring, fragile yet unbroken. It is here, in this humble shadow world beneath the thunder of giants, that their story takes root. While the world above belongs to the dinosaurs, the ground below belongs to them. And though no eye notices, no roar acknowledges them, the small mammals continue their journey, steady, hidden, eternal. If the forests and plains above are kingdoms of danger, then beneath the surface lies a kingdom of comfort. To the small mammals of the Mesozoic, the burrow is more than just a hole in the ground. It is a fortress, a cradle, and a home woven from earth itself. In a world dominated by creatures that tower and roar, survival often depends on retreat, and retreat leads downward into the soil. Imagine crouching low and peering into the mouth of such a burrow. From the outside, it looks like nothing more than a dark hollow beneath a root, a small depression hidden by ferns and fallen leaves. But step inside, carefully, slowly, and the air changes. The heavy scent of damp earth fills your lungs. The walls, smoothed by countless tiny pores, feel cool and solid to the touch, sturdy enough to block out the tremors of passing feet above. And the deeper you move, the warmer it becomes, the burrow cradling life in its earthen arms. Here tiny families gather. A mother curls around her young, her body a living blanket of fur, soft and steady. Her pups, no larger than your thumb, nuzzle close, their tiny mouths drawing milk, nature's quiet invention, warmth turned into nourishment. Around them, the nest is lined with moss, dry grasses, and shredded leaves, all carefully collected under the cover of night. The space glows with intimacy, the soft squeaks of pups, the faint rustle of movement, the steady rhythm of a mother's heartbeat echoing in the small chamber. Above ground, danger never sleeps. Predators stalk, raptors prowl, even the shifting of a massive herbivore could collapse a small life with a single careless step. But here in the burrow, there is safety. The thick earth muffles sound, turning the roars of dinosaurs into distant thunder. The ground that shakes above steadies into a gentle hum. Shadows cannot reach where no light enters. In this hidden place, the small mammals find their sanctuary. Yet the burrow is not merely a refuge, it is also a stage of learning. Pups grow here, safe from claws and teeth. Their first steps are taken in the darkness of earth, their first play in tunnels that wind like miniature labyrinths. Mothers teach them to sniff out stored seeds hidden inside chambers, to dig deeper when storms flood the land, to freeze into silence when the ground trembles with the approach of giants. Each lesson is a gift, passed quietly from one generation to the next, ensuring that survival continues no matter the danger above. The burrow is also a memory of warmth. When volcanic ash darkens the sky, when storms rage across the land, when predators prowl under moonlight, these underground refuges endure. They are stitched into the very fabric of mammalian life, a choice to live not in the open, but in hidden corridors where safety is measured not in strength, but in stillness. Picture the forest floor after a storm. The rain has ceased, leaving the world above soaked and dripping. Water runs in small rivulets between roots, insects buzz drowsily in the heavy air, and the smell of wet pine lingers everywhere. Beneath this soaked world, in dry chambers lined with leaves, families of mammals remain untouched. They rest together in warmth, the storm now only a muffled memory above their heads. Here in these burrows, survival becomes something more than instinct. It becomes a community. It becomes care. It becomes the quiet bond of creatures who may never dominate the world in size or power, but who endure because they know how to build sanctuaries in the soil. In the end, the burrow is more than a hole. It is a symbol of resilience, a promise that no matter how loudly the dinosaurs may rule the surface, there will always be small lives thriving in the safety of the earth. When the sun sinks beneath the horizon, the world undergoes a quiet transformation. The blazing power of day, with its glare and its dangers, fades into softness. The air cools, the forests sigh as if relieved of their burden. The roars and bellows of giants diminish, and in their place comes a subtler symphony, one of crickets, rustling leaves, and the faint patter of tiny paws. Night, at last, belongs to the small. The small mammals emerge like whispers carried on the breeze. From burrow mouths, from cracks in fallen logs, from roots and hollowed stones, they slip into the cool embrace of starlight. Their movements are cautious, yet confident, as though the dark itself is an ally. Their fur glimmers faintly in the moonlight, whiskers twitching as they test the air. Every sense is alive. Eyes widen to capture the silver wash of the moon, ears tuned to the faintest tremor of a beetle's step. noses catching the scent of seeds, fungi, and insect wings hidden beneath leaves. The night is not empty, far from it. Above, the stars blaze in uncountable numbers, brilliant against a sky untouched by the glow of any future civilization. The Milky Way spills across the heavens like a river of light, guiding creatures below. A crescent moon hangs low, its pale glow falling upon cycads and conifers, turning their shadows long and strange. Bats have not yet claimed the skies, but moths drift silently between branches, and enormous dragonflies skim the surface of still ponds. It is a world cast in silver and shadow, and it is here that the mammals thrive. Picture one, no larger than a mouse, scampering across a fallen branch. Its tiny claws grip the bark with ease, balancing as it darts after a beetle. Another creeps along the forest floor, nose to the ground, sniffing at seeds dropped by trees overhead. A third glides from branch to branch, a soft-furred pioneer of flight, its loose skin stretched between limbs, catching the air in a gentle arc. These lives are brief, fragile, and easily overlooked. And yet, together, they weave the fabric of the nighttime world. In the safety of darkness, the small mammals dare to do what daylight denies them. They forage openly, they explore, they chase insects with bursts of playful energy. They gnaw seeds and crack shells, their sharp teeth working tirelessly. In the open spaces between ferns, they pause, noses twitching, listening for danger. A predator could still be near, a raptor lurking in the shadows, or a crocodile lying still at the water's edge. But compared to the glaring dangers of day, the night feels like a gift, a gentle permission for small lives to exist freely. If you linger quietly, you begin to notice the rhythm of their world, the patter of paws in the undergrowth, the high-pitched squeaks of communication, sharp but soft, carried only to those who need to hear, the faint scratching of claws against bark. It is a delicate music, one that does not rise above the trees but remains close to the soil, a private song of survival. And yet beneath this quiet rhythm there is wonder. To live in the night is to live in a world painted differently. Each leaf, each stone, each ripple of water seems charged with mystery in the silver glow of moonlight. For the small mammals, the night is not only safe, it is a possibility, a time to explore, to bond, to grow. A time when the world feels less threatening and more like a vast playground stitched with stars. They do not know, these creatures, that they are pioneers, that their timid foraging, their cautious lives under the cloak of night, are the foundation of something much greater. They do not know that one day, their descendants will roam the world not only by night, but also by day, claiming lands and seas, becoming wolves and whales, elephants and deer. But here in the Mesozoic night, all they know is this: the darkness belongs to them. So the giants sleep, and the mammals thrive. In every rustle of grass, in every gleam of an eye beneath the stars, in every tiny heartbeat pounding quickly against the silence, the night is claimed, quietly, humbly, eternally. The night is alive not only with shadows and whispers, but with wings. The Mesozoic world, bathed in moonlight, is thick with insects, endless, tireless, buzzing multitudes that hum in the air, crawl along bark, and scurry through the leaf litter. To the small mammals, they are not just background noise. They are abundance, sustenance, and the nightly reward for stepping into the cool silver dark. Close your eyes and listen. The forest hums with life. The soft drone of cicadas swells and fades like a breathing chorus. Moths flap silently, their wings dusted with pale scales that shimmer as they catch the moonlight. Beetles clatter as they tumble clumsily through the undergrowth, their hard shells glinting when they cross into moonlit gaps. Even the air feels thicker, vibrating faintly with the pulse of insect life. For the giants, these sounds are little more than faint irritations, but for the mammals, they are a banquet waiting to be claimed. Picture a small mammal, no bigger than your palm, perched on a low branch. Its eyes, round and shining, track the flutter of a moth drifting lazily in the night. The creature waits, body coiled, whiskers trembling with focus. Then, in a swift leap, it launches forward. Tiny claws clutch the bark, teeth snap, and the moth vanishes into the night with only a faint whisper of wings silenced. The mammal pauses, chewing quickly, its dark eyes gleaming with triumph. On the forest floor, another scrambles through damp leaves, its nose twitching furiously. It finds a beetle, its shell hard and glistening. The mammal seizes it in nimble paws, sharp teeth working methodically to crack the carapace. The sound is faint but distinct, a crunch, followed by the soft smacking of jaws as the creature devours the meal. Bits of shell scatter onto the soil, glinting faintly in the moonlight before sinking into the humus. The abundance of insects ensures variety. Ants march in endless columns across fallen logs, carrying fragments of leaves larger than themselves. Spiders hang in silken webs, their delicate strands shimmering like silver threads strung between branches. Grasshoppers leap, vanishing into ferns with sudden bursts of energy. To the mammals, each is an opportunity, a test of quickness, patience, and cleverness. Some creep silently, waiting for prey to stumble too close. Others dart boldly, using agility to outpace wings and legs. The night becomes a patchwork of hunts, tiny dramas played out in silence beneath the larger stillness of sleeping giants. But it is not only food. The insects bring a strange, cozy comfort to the night. Their constant buzzing fills the darkness with texture, turning silence into something living. For the mammals, the sounds are signals, telling them where food lies, warning of movement, guiding them through the dim-lit labyrinth of trees and ferns. Each chirp, buzz, and flutter is a note in the nocturnal map of survival. In this world, abundance is not measured in towering trees or thundering herds. It is measured in wings, in shells, in countless tiny bodies. For the dinosaurs, insects are invisible. For the mammals, they are everything. Sustenance, opportunity, and the steady assurance that the night will always provide. And so, as stars wheel overhead and the moon climbs higher, the small mammals feast. Their tiny jaws work, their paws hold steady, their bellies fill. Life is dangerous, precarious, and always uncertain in the age of giants. But for tonight at least, the shadows are kind. For tonight, the insects are plentiful. For tonight, survival tastes of wings and shell, and the forest hums with the quiet satisfaction of the small. Not every meal of the small mammals was won with a chase. The forest floor itself offered its quiet bounty, seeds tucked within cones, spores hidden in clusters, fallen fruits scattered in the underbrush. To the giants, these treasures went unnoticed, too small to matter in their endless hunger for leaves and branches. But for the mammals, these delicate morsels were survival itself, gifts hidden in plain sight, waiting for nimble paws and sharp teeth. By day, the forest canopy belonged to the dinosaurs. Massive herbivores stripped entire trees bare with sweeping jaws. Clumsy feet trampled young ferns and cycads, crushing them into pulp. But in the shadows, beneath roots and logs, the small mammals searched with patience. Their world was not measured in towering trees, but in the weight of a single seed, the taste of a fragile spore, the sweetness of a tiny fruit ripened unseen. Picture one of these creatures, no larger than a rat, nosing its way through damp moss. Its whiskers tremble as it sniffs, searching for the faint, earthy aroma of fungus. It finds a cluster of spore caps, delicate as lace, growing on the shaded side of a fallen trunk. The mammal nibbles carefully, savoring the soft texture, storing energy for the nights to come. Each bite is quiet, cautious, but also content, a moment of peace in a world of thunder. Elsewhere, another mammal pries open the hardened cone of a conifer. Its sharp teeth work tirelessly to free the seeds within, each one a kernel of concentrated life. It tucks some away in cheek pouches, carrying them back to its burrow where the cache will be buried in the earth. Some of these seeds will be eaten during leaner nights, others will be forgotten, pressed into soil, sprouting quietly into new trees. In this way, the small mammals become gardeners of the ancient forests, carrying the future unknowingly in their tiny paws. And then there are fruits. Primitive though they are, early fruits and fleshy seeds offer sweetness rare in the Mesozoic night. A mammal might climb low branches to pluck a fallen berry, rolling it between its paws before biting into the tender skin. The taste is sharp, bright, unlike the earthy crunch of insects or the dry crackle of seeds. It is a fleeting luxury, savored in the dark, a memory of sunlight carried into the coolness of night. For the giants, such treasures are too small to notice, but for the mammals, they are abundance measured on a miniature scale. A single cone can feed a family. A patch of fungi can sustain a burrow. A handful of seeds can be tucked into chambers for weeks to come. And so, in the silence of night, they gather, they nibble, they store, living not only for the present moment, but for the uncertainty of the future. There is comfort in this ritual. The act of collecting, of carrying food back to the safety of a burrow, becomes a rhythm of life. It is not merely survival, it is preparation. A soft assurance that when storms come, when predators prowl, when the forest shifts, there will be nourishment waiting in the dark. In this way, the small mammals practice something profound: foresight. a gift that will one day shape the destiny of their descendants. Seeds and spores, humble, quiet things, easily overlooked. Yet within them lies a story of patience, of planning, of quiet resilience. While giants thunder through the trees above, the mammals cradle the future in their paws, carrying the promise of forests yet to grow. Night may belong to the small, but it is never entirely safe. Even under the sheltering cloak of darkness, shadows conceal hunters. For every tiny mammal creeping through the ferns, there are eyes sharper, ears keener, and claws poised to strike. The night offers freedom, yes, but also fear. It is a fragile balance, survival woven on the thin edge of vigilance. Listen closely and you can hear it, silence where there should be sound. The crickets cease their song, the leaves stop rustling, the air itself seems to hold its breath. Something moves in the dark, slow, deliberate, patient, a predator. Some are ancient reptiles, survivors of a lineage that once ruled long before the dinosaurs. Crocodilian shapes lie half-submerged in ponds and streams, their ridged backs blending into waterlogged banks. Their eyes gleam faintly, reflecting the moonlight as they wait without a ripple. A thirsty mammal, pausing to drink, risks everything. One snap, one sudden thrash of jaws, and the night feast becomes silent once more. Others stalk the forest floor. Small theropod dinosaurs, feathered and sleek, glide through the undergrowth. Their movements are fluid, their claws sharp, their teeth needle-like and gleaming. Raptors, quick and cunning, press their heads low as they follow the scent of tiny paws across the damp soil. To them, a mammal is no different than a beetle or a lizard, prey to be taken, devoured, forgotten. Their eyes, bright as burning coals in the moonlight, pierce the shadows where mammals hide. And then there are the skis. Primitive owls have yet to exist, but the night air is not empty. Pterosaurs, their leathery wings stretched wide, sometimes hunt after dark. Not all are fish-eaters of the coast. Some, smaller and more agile, swoop silently through inland forests, seizing anything small enough to be carried in their jaws. Their cries cut through the night like strange, foreign music, a reminder that danger does not always come from the ground. For mammals, survival is vigilance. Every foray into the open is a gamble. They sniff the air, pause to listen, twitch their whiskers at the faintest change in wind. They dart in short bursts, never lingering too long in one place. They freeze at the tremor of distant steps, hearts pounding as if the very earth itself warned them to be still. Their burrows, their caches, their silence, all are shields against the predators that prowl beyond the stars. And yet within this danger lies the very essence of their resilience. The small mammals do not cower endlessly. They emerge, they risk it, they adapt. Some grow quicker, their legs stronger for bursts of speed. Others sharpen their senses, hearing the faintest rustle before it becomes a strike. Still others learn to live higher, climbing into branches where claws cannot always follow. Each predator teaches them a new lesson, shaping their path with every close escape. Imagine the scene. A small mammal darts into a clearing, nose to the ground, searching for seeds. From the shadows, a raptor lunges, teeth snapping just behind. The mammal freezes for the briefest instant, then twists, slipping into a narrow crevice between roots. The raptor hisses, claws raking soil, but the opening is too small. Inside, the mammal trembles, heart racing like a drumbeat, yet it lives. And with each heartbeat that passes, life endures. Predators in the dark are reminders. They remind the mammals that the world above is not theirs, that survival must be won night after night in silence and caution. But they also remind us, listening now across the gulf of time, of the quiet determination that shaped these tiny creatures. Against eyes sharper, claws stronger, jaws mightier, they endured. They learned to survive in the shadows, and in doing so, they laid the first stones of a path that would one day outlast the predators themselves. For the small mammals of the Mesozoic, survival was never just about teeth and claws. It was about touch, about closeness, about the quiet, constant guidance of whiskers and the gentle assurance of warmth. These were their gifts, their secret strengths in a world where giants ruled the day and predators prowled the night. Whiskers' long, delicate, quivering threads of sense were as important as eyes and ears. In the soft dark of the forest floor, sight often failed. Moonlight fell unevenly through the canopy, shadows pooled thick under ferns, and many dangers lurked unseen. But whiskers never failed. They brushed against bark, traced the curve of roots, felt the stir of air before wings or claws struck. Each tremble carried a message. The space is too narrow, the passage too steep, the ground too soft. Whiskers were maps etched in touch, telling the mammals where safety lay and where danger waited. Imagine one, no larger than a vole, pausing at the entrance of a hollow log. The air is still, the shadows deep. Its whiskers sweep forward, stroking the curve of the wood, measuring its width. A faint vibration, the scuttle of beetle legs inside, reaches through those threads, and the mammal slips inside with confidence, knowing the path before it takes a single step. In the hush of the night, such tiny senses were lifelines. But whiskers alone could not sustain life. Warmth was the second gift, the quiet fire within, and the sharing of that fire with others. Unlike the cold-blooded reptiles that grew sluggish with the falling night, the mammals carried the sun within their bodies. Their hearts beat steady, their blood ran warm, their breath rose in tiny clouds when the air chilled. In this warmth lay resilience, the ability to move, forage, and nurture long after the giants had grown still. Within their burrows, warmth became comfort. A mother curled her body around her young, her fur soft, her breath steady, her heat radiating into the nest of moss and leaves. The pups nestled against her, tiny hearts fluttering, safe in the rhythm of her warmth. Outside, predators prowled, but here, in this circle of closeness, the world softened into peace. The warmth was not only physical, it was companionship. Small mammals often gathered in groups, their bodies pressed together in hidden chambers. They groomed each other with delicate care, nibbling at fur, soothing scratches, strengthening bonds. Their tiny voices, squeaks, chirps, clicks, filled the air with soft reassurance. In the great silence of the night, they were never alone. Picture them huddled together while rain patters above, each body lending heat to the next, each breath mingling. The storm may rage, lightning may flash, but within the circle of fur and warmth, there is safety, there is family, there is the quiet strength of togetherness. Whiskers and warmth, small things, easily overlooked by the thunder of the age, yet they carried power far beyond their size. Whiskers turned the dark into a map. Warmth turned fear into comfort, cold into life. These gifts allowed the mammals to thrive where others faltered, to endure where others fell. And in them we see the first hints of the legacy to come. For what are mammals, even now, but creatures of touch and closeness, of warmth shared in families and communities? What are we, their distant descendants, but bearers of the same gifts, guided by senses that connect us to the world, and warmed by bonds that connect us to one another? In the hush of the Mesozoic night, as tiny whiskers trembled and hearts glowed with warmth, the future of all mammals was quietly being written. The forest was not only a place of roots and shadows, it was also a world of heights, of branches stretching wide, of leaves whispering in the night air. For small mammals, the canopy was both a refuge and a challenge. To climb was to escape many dangers of the ground, but to leap, to trust the air itself, was to embrace a new way of life. And so, in this age of giants, some mammals discovered the gift of gliding. Imagine the canopy under a pale Mesozoic moon. Fern fronds the size of sails unfurl overhead, and branches weave a tangled maze. Among them, a small mammal climbs with nimble claws, its body no larger than your hand. It pauses at the edge of a branch, whiskers twitching as it gazes across the open space to another tree. The gap is wide, far too wide for a simple leap, yet the mammal does not hesitate. Its body stretches, a flap of skin unfurls along its sides, and with a sudden spring it leaps, into the air, into the void. For a heartbeat it falls. Then the membrane catches the wind and the fall becomes flight. The mammal glides, a silent shadow between trees, drifting gracefully across the night. Leaves rustle as it passes, wings of skin taut against the cool air. Its tiny body balances with the sway of its tail, steering like a living kite through the canopy. Then, with a soft thud, it lands upon the bark of another trunk, claws gripping firmly, heart still racing with the thrill of the leap. These gliders were pioneers of the night skis, their innovation giving them access to food and freedom beyond the reach of many predators. By gliding, they could cross rivers, skip over predators lurking below, and reach patches of fruit, seeds, and insects that others could never touch. The canopy became their highway, a hidden network of paths written in air, invisible yet vital. Picture several of them together. A mother glides first, her body silhouetted against the stars, her pups clinging to her fur. Behind her, another leaps, then another, their shadows flickering like sparks across the forest. To us, it is breathtaking. To them, it is simply life, a way to move safely, to thrive in a world where danger waits with teeth and claws. The predators, too, watched. Raptors that prowled the ground snarled in frustration as prey simply vanished into the trees above. Even small feathered hunters hesitated to give chase into the swaying canopy. The glider's gift was not invincibility. Storms could tear membranes, falls could break bones, and keen-eyed pterosaurs might still seize them mid-flight. But it was a chance, an edge, a way to turn the vast, dangerous forest into something more survivable. And it was more than survival. There was beauty in it too. To leap into the void and trust the night wind was an act of courage. The forest became alive with motion, small shadows flickering through the moonlight, arcs of silent flight drawn between trees. To watch it from afar would be to see sparks of possibility in the dark, tiny mammals claiming a piece of the sky for themselves. In those leaps, in those glides, lies a hint of the future. For though wings would not truly belong to mammals until much, much later, here in the Mesozoic canopy, they took their first steps, or rather, their first flights. Small, fragile, fleeting, but real. And so the night sky was no longer the sole domain of pterosaurs. In quiet, unseen ways, the mammals had begun to share it. They had learned not only to burrow, not only to scurry and climb, but to fly, or at least something close to it. The canopy whispered with their daring, and the future of mammals spread its wings in silence. The world of the small mammals was never empty, never truly theirs alone. Every step they took, every seed they gathered, every insect they chased was made in the looming presence of giants. To live in the Mesozoic was to live beneath shadows that stretched long and heavy across the land, cast by creatures so massive that their very footsteps shook the ground. By day, the forests and plains belonged to the dinosaurs. Enormous sauropods stretched their necks skyward, stripping entire trees bare in a single sweep. Their footsteps left behind craters in the soil, pools where rain collected, tiny ecosystems formed in a single print. Triceratops and other horned beasts plodded through the undergrowth, their armored bodies brushing aside saplings that had stood for decades. Predators, larger still, moved with power and silence, tyrants whose gaze could reduce every living thing into prey. For a small mammal, these giants were not just creatures. They were forces of nature. To live alongside them was like living beneath mountains that moved, storms that breathed, rivers that thundered on legs. The mammals could not fight them, could not match them, could not hope to stand against their power. Instead, they learned the art of invisibility. Picture the scene: a herd of sauropods grazes at the forest edge, their tails sweeping like whips, their necks swaying like cranes. At their feet, a family of mammals scurries through the grass unnoticed. They dart between footprints, climb into hollows, and vanish into cracks in the earth. The giants eat, stomp, rumble their low calls, but never look down. The mammals are shadows among shadows, living their lives in silence beneath the thunder of the age. Sometimes opportunity comes with danger. A carnivore's kill, a fallen hadrosaur torn and half devoured, was a feast too large for any predator to finish. Once the tyrant moved on, the mammals crept forward, their noses twitching at the scent of meat. Cautiously, nervously, they took what scraps they could, nibbling at sinew and marrow, seizing nutrition from the leftovers of giants. It was risky, predators often returned, but for the small, risk was always part of survival. Even their burrows reflected this hidden existence. Many were dug at the edges of dinosaur trails, where roots had been torn up by trampling feet. Some were carved into the soft earth beneath toppled logs left behind by massive beasts. Others were nestled in the protective hollows of tree trunks scarred by horned giants. In the wake of destruction, the mammals found shelter, turning the chaos of giants into havens for the small. There was awe too, though the mammals could never name it. To emerge from a burrow at night and see the immense silhouette of a sauropod moving like a living hill against the stars, to hear the bellow of a predator echo through the trees, was to live each day in the presence of wonders. For us, millions of years later, the giants are fossils, bones in stone. But for those small mammals, they were neighbors, dangerous and indifferent, but neighbors nonetheless. The mammals did not challenge them. They did not need to. Instead, they endured, hidden among giants, living lives measured not in roars and stomps, but in the quiet scratching of paws, the gentle gathering of seeds, the warmth of burrows. In the vast scale of the Mesozoic, they seemed insignificant. And yet, as history would one day prove, it was the quiet lives hidden in shadows that would outlast the thunder. Though the dinosaurs ruled and the mammals endured in their shadows, the greatest ruler of all was not flesh or bone, but time itself. The turning of seasons shaped the world just as surely as teeth and claws, guiding the rise and fall of life in a steady, endless rhythm. For the small mammals of the Mesozoic, survival meant listening to the voice of the seasons, preparing, adapting, and flowing with their changes. The forests themselves told the tale. In the warmth of long summers, the air grew heavy with buzzing insects, seeds scattered freely, and fruits ripened in clusters. It was a season of abundance, a time when mothers nursed their pups on full bellies and burrows overflowed with food stores. Nights were alive with movement, tiny shapes scurrying along branches, whiskers twitching in satisfaction. Every crevice, every hollow, every root became a pantry, carefully stocked against what was to come. But summer always gave way. As days shortened and air cooled, the forest changed its voice. Insects grew scarce, their droning songs fading into silence. Seeds were fewer, the earth harder, the nights colder. The giants too felt the shift. Herds of herbivores moved, following green lands that retreated with the seasons, while predators tracked them in kind. For small mammals, the change was sharper, more perilous. Where once the night hummed with food, now each outing was a gamble. Some adapted with movement, following cycles of plenty as best they could. Others adapted with stillness, curling deep within burrows and surviving on caches of seeds, spores, and stored fat. Their tiny hearts slowed, their breaths softened, as if the earth itself was lulling them into dreams until the warmth returned. Rain too carved the seasons. There were times when storms swept across the land, turning soil to rivers and filling burrows with rushing water. Tiny mammals scrambled to higher ground, carrying pups in their jaws, clinging to roots as torrents tore away their homes. Yet when the skies cleared, the rains left behind new abundance. Fresh plants, moist soils rich with insects, pools that glittered beneath the moon. And then came drought, long stretches where rivers dwindled to dust, leaves curled in thirst, and even the giants grew restless. For mammals, drought was perhaps the hardest trial. Seeds shriveled, insects vanished, and burrows baked in heat. Survival meant ingenuity, gnawing on roots hidden deep underground, traveling by night to conserve water, and huddling close for shared warmth when the air grew cold, even as the ground cracked dry. Yet through all these trials, the mammals endured. Their smallness, so often a curse, became their gift. They needed less to survive, less to sustain, less to wait out the lean times. Where giants faltered, the tiny endured. The seasons shaped not just survival, but the rhythm of their lives. Pups were born when food was most plentiful, weaned in times of comfort, and taught to forage in seasons of transition. Burrows were rebuilt and expanded after storms, new chambers dug as families grew. Each year was a cycle of lessons repeated and refined, written into instinct and memory, passed quietly from generation to generation. Imagine standing beneath a canopy as the first frost of the season settles over the ferns, glittering silver in the moonlight. A small mammal emerges, its breath misting the air, its fur bristling against the cold. It pauses, nose to the wind, and darts swiftly to a hidden cache of seeds buried weeks before. There in the hush of winter's breath is survival, not through strength, but through foresight, preparation, and trust in the cycle. Seasons came and went, endlessly repeating. The giants thundered through them, rising and falling like the tides. But the small mammals, listening closely to the whispers of the earth, learned to bend with the seasons, never breaking. And in that patience, in that resilience, lay the quiet secret of their endurance. Silence was never truly silent in the Mesozoic. When the sun fell and shadows thickened across the forest floor, the night came alive with 1,000 quiet voices, soft, subtle, and easily missed beneath the booming roars of the giants. These were the voices of the small mammals, hidden yet constant, weaving their own music into the dark. Their language was not like ours. It was a chorus of chirps, squeaks, clicks, and whispers of breath. Some calls were sharp and urgent, warnings of predators, shrill alarms that sent pups scurrying back into burrows. Others were gentle and rhythmic, murmurs between mates, reassurance between mother and young, the soft notes of grooming and comfort. Every sound carried meaning, shaping bonds as much as survival. Picture a quiet clearing beneath towering cycads. The moon glimmers through branches, silver on the leaves. From a hollow log, a tiny squeak escapes, a pup calling for its mother. Almost at once, an answering trill comes from nearby, and the pup stirs, comforted by the promise of her return. Around them, other voices rise and fall. The staccato chirp of a forager marking its find, the hiss of another warding off a rival, the high-pitched chorus of young at play, tumbling and squealing in the safety of their burrow. These sounds stitched the small communities together. In a world ruled by colossal indifference, where the thunder of footsteps and the roar of predators drowned all else, the mammals had found their own symphony, soft, secret, and deeply their own. But not all voices came from the throat. Some were spoken in vibrations, tiny drumming paws on hollow logs, the faint thump-thump of feet on packed soil, rhythms that echoed just far enough to reach listening ears. Others came from scent, musky trails left along routes, silent words written in air for those who knew how to read them. Communication was survival. A warning call could mean the difference between life and death, a moment's advantage against the sudden strike of a predator. But it was more than that. It was kinship. In the stillness of the night, voices reassured each other that they were not alone. Even in darkness, even in peril, there was company. Imagine crouching low in that ancient forest, ears tuned to the ground. You would hear it, a constant murmur beneath the grander chorus of the Mesozoic. Tiny voices, unseen but unbroken, telling stories of hunger and safety, of family and warning, of life carried on in whispers. And perhaps, if you listened closely enough, you might hear an echo of yourself. For even now, long after those little mammals vanished into the pages of time, their legacy lingers in us. We too speak in words soft and hard, in laughter and lullabies, in whispers of comfort and cries of alarm. The night belongs to voices still, carried forward from those first small sounds beneath the feet of giants. Among the countless wonders of the Mesozoic, none shone more quietly, nor proved more enduring than the bond between mammal mothers and their young. In a world where survival often meant abandoning the weak, where giants lived fast and died in roaring contests of strength, the small mammals chose another path. They invested not in size or speed, but in care, in nurturing, in patience, in love whispered into the dark. Picture a burrow tucked deep beneath roots and stone, hidden from predators and weather alike. Inside it is warm. The air smells of damp earth and fur, and the faint glow of moonlight spills through a crack above. Here a mother curls herself into a circle, her pups pressed against her belly. Their eyes are sealed shut, their skin thin and fragile. They are helpless, blind, utterly dependent, and yet, because of her, they live. The mother's body is their first world. Her warmth shields them from the chill that creeps through the soil. Her milk, rich and warm, nourishes their tiny forms, giving strength to bones and muscles that have not yet learned to stand. Her heartbeat is their lullaby, a rhythm of safety that has echoed since before their birth. Every day she ventures into the dangerous world above. She slips out silently, whiskers twitching, nose to the wind. She darts from shadow to shadow, foraging seeds, insects, and roots, stuffing her cheeks or carrying food in her jaws. Then she returns, always returning to the soft squeaks of her pups. Each trip is a gamble, the flash of an owl-like pterosaur above, the snap of a small raptor in the underbrush. Yet she risks it all again and again for the life inside her burrow. This devotion set mammals apart. Many creatures of the age laid eggs and left them to fate, their young forced to fend for themselves the moment they cracked their shells. But mammals lingered. They cradled the weak, they sheltered the helpless, they gave time where time was costly. That patience, that insistence on care, planted the seeds of resilience that would one day reshape the world. Imagine the sound within the burrow, the gentle rustle of pups crawling over one another, the tiny squeaks of hunger, the soft lapping as they drink. Above them, the forest groans with the heavy tread of giants, the night split by the cries of predators. Yet within this earthen cradle, there is peace. The mother licks her young, cleans them, wraps her body around them like a shield. In her care, the pups grow, day by day, into creatures who will one day dig their own burrows, raise their own litters, and continue the quiet lineage forward. This was the future being written in the shadows, not in the thunder of claws and teeth, but in the tender patience of a mother nursing her young. That choice, to nurture rather than abandon, to protect rather than expose, would ripple across ages. Long after the giants vanished, it would remain, shaping everything from the lullabies of wolves to the cradles of humankind. For the mammals of the Mesozoic, maternal care was not only survival, it was destiny. In their warmth, in their patience, the future was kept alive through storms, through droughts, through endless nights beneath the feet of giants. In every tiny burrow, history was being written, one heartbeat, one pup, one mother at a time. No creature lives alone. Even in the vast and perilous Mesozoic, where giants reigned and dangers lurked at every turn, the small mammals were never truly isolated. Their lives, though hidden, were part of a tapestry, threads woven with plants, insects, and other quiet beings who shaped their world. In the shadows of dinosaurs, they found allies in unexpected places. Consider first the plants, those silent architects of the forest. Seeds and spores were more than food, they were gifts wrapped in patience. Tiny mammals scurried to gather them, cheeks stuffed with treasures from the forest floor. Some were eaten, fueling survival through lean nights. Others were buried and forgotten, tucked into soil that in time would sprout into new growth. Without knowing it, these little creatures became gardeners of their world, spreading life even as they sustained themselves. Insects, too, were more than prey. They were companions in rhythm. By night, beetles, crickets, and moths stirred in the underbrush, their movements mirroring the mammals' own foraging. The mammals hunted them with quick paws and twitching noses, feasting on their abundance. But in turn, the insects pollinated plants, ensuring the next generation of fruits and seeds for mammals to gather. Predator and partner, hunter and helper, their roles intertwined in a cycle that neither could escape, nor would want to. Even fungi played their quiet part. Beneath the soil, webs of mycelium stretched unseen, breaking down fallen wood and leaf, feeding the earth itself. When mammals dug for roots or insects, they often disturbed these fungal networks, spreading their spores to new places. In return, fungi enriched the soil, ensuring that plants flourished and seeds took root. It was an alliance written in the language of earth and decay, invisible but essential. And then there were the scavenger birds and insects, who stripped carcasses clean after the great predators had moved on. For mammals, these creatures were warning signals. The buzz of flies meant meat nearby, though it also meant danger. The core of scavengers overhead might lead to scraps, but also to predators returning. To live among them was to read their signs, to weave their voices into the map of survival. Even the giants themselves, indifferent as they were, shaped alliances without intent. Sauropods tore down branches, leaving behind fallen fruits and seeds for mammals to gather. Herbivores grazed paths through forests, creating corridors that smaller creatures used to travel unseen. Predators left behind carcasses that, while dangerous, provided feasts too large to ignore. Every step the giants took rippled outward, feeding countless small lives. The mammals, in turn, gave back to the world in ways too small to notice then, but too important to forget now. By spreading seeds, by shaping soils, by keeping insect populations in balance, they became caretakers of the very ecosystems that dwarfed them. They were threads in the web, delicate but essential, binding together plants, fungi, insects, and even the giants who never once looked down to notice them. Imagine walking through that ancient forest at night. You would hear the rustle of leaves as mammals darted after crickets, the hum of moths brushing against flowers, the drip of dew on ferns nourished by soil enriched with fungal decay. Every sound, every movement, every breath was a part of the greater web. To pull one thread would tremble the whole, a truth the mammals lived instinctively, long before it was ever spoken aloud. It was in this web of allies that the small mammals found resilience. Alone they were fragile, but bound to the world around them, they endured. And through their quiet labor, unnoticed by the thunder above, they helped to nurture a world that would one day be theirs. The Mesozoic world was not only a place of giants and shadows, it was also a land of tempests, a stage where the skies themselves could roar louder than any predator and where the earth could burn with sudden fury. For the small mammals, storms and fire were as much a part of life as insects and seeds, shaping their days with danger and renewal. First came the storms. They did not whisper, they announced themselves with clouds that stacked high into the heavens, black and rolling, their bellies lit with veins of lightning. Winds bent trees and sent leaves spiraling in frantic dances, the forest trembling under the weight of air itself. To a sauropod, a storm was an inconvenience. To a small mammal, it was a trial of survival. When thunder cracked across the canopy, mothers hurried their pups deeper into burrows, noses pressed to the soil as rain hammered the world above. Water gushed into hollows, flooding tunnels and forcing families to scramble higher, clinging to roots slick with mud. Some found safety in abandoned logs, others in cracks of stone. The pounding rain blurred all sense, washed away trails, and left the night strange and unfamiliar. But when the skies cleared, the air was cool, the earth rich, and insects emerged in swarms, feeding hungry survivors. Then came the fire. Lightning struck the dry forests with merciless precision, setting ancient ferns and resin-heavy conifers ablaze. Flames raced along the forest floor, crackling, leaping, consuming. For the small mammals, fire was a predator like no other, swift, insatiable, unstoppable. They could not fight it, they could only flee. Burrows became lifelines, damp walls shielding against the heat while smoke curled above. Those trapped near the flames fled through tunnels of roots, whiskers twitching in panic, pups clutched in jaws. Some did not make it. Yet when the fire passed, the forest bore new gifts. Charred wood gave way to fertile ground, ash feeding soil, and seeds buried by mammals sprouted into fresh green. There were other disasters too. Tempests of wind tore across plains, flattening forests and scattering herds. Hailstones fell like white stones from the heavens, bruising leaves and battering wings. In every season, in every corner of their world, the mammals faced reminders that nature was no gentler than tooth and claw. And yet through each trial they endured. Their size, once their greatest vulnerability, often became their shield. They could retreat into holes the fire could not reach, slip beneath roots the wind could not tear away, find food where others starved. In storms and in fire, they learned to adapt, to prepare, to bend with the world rather than break against it. Imagine the hush after such chaos. The ground still smolders, the air carries the scent of char and rain, and the sky glows with stars peeking through torn clouds. A small mammal emerges, whiskers damp, paws blackened with soot. Around it, the forest is scarred but not silent. Crickets sing again, moths flutter, and the first shoots of green push bravely through ash. Life does not end, it begins anew. Storms and fire were not only destroyers, they were also teachers, reminding the mammals that survival was not about resisting change, but flowing with it. In learning to endure disaster, they prepared for futures more uncertain still. The Mesozoic night was not truly dark. Above the forests and plains, the sky unfolded like a vast ocean, sprinkled with the light of ancient stars. But among those countless points of fire, one ruled supreme, the moon. For the small mammals, it was more than a distant light. It was a companion, a guide, and at times, a challenge. When the moon rose full, silver and round, it poured its glow across the earth. Shadows deepened, long and sharp, stretching across roots and stones. For the mammals, these bright nights were both a gift and a peril. The world became easier to see, paths clear, food visible, the ground bathed in soft light. Yet this same glow betrayed them to sharp-eyed hunters above. The swoop of a pterosaur, the strike of a small theropod, the moonlit world carried danger with its beauty. So they learned to move with the moon. On nights of brightness, they kept close to cover, darting from root to root, never lingering in the open. On nights when clouds veiled the sky, or when the moon waned to a sliver, they ventured farther, braver in the cloak of darkness. Their lives were tuned not only to sun and season, but to the shifting phases of the lunar cycle. Some followed the stars as well. Migrating insects rose in glittering clouds, their movements guided by celestial rhythms. Mammals, keen observers of the small, learned to follow. They found food where insects swarmed, where flowers opened to starlight, where the night offered abundance. The sky was map and calendar both, etched in light far above. But the moon was more than useful. To those tiny creatures, huddled in burrows or perched on branches, it must have felt like a constant presence, something eternal in a world of sudden storms and roaring giants. When a pup looked up for the first time, blinking against the silver glow, it gazed at the same face that shines on us now. That connection spans millions of years, a thread of light linking their nights to ours. Imagine crouching in the hush of a Mesozoic clearing. The forest is alive with whispers, the soft rustle of fur, the tiny squeaks of communication, the flutter of moths brushing through ferns. Above, the moon rests in its arc, casting a calm silver sheen over all below. A small mammal pauses, whiskers twitching, eyes wide and glimmering with reflected light. At that moment, the giant world shrinks, and the night belongs not to dinosaurs nor to predators, but to the quiet watchers beneath the moon's glow. The shadows it cast were both friend and foe, but always familiar. And through them, mammals learn not just to survive, but to anticipate, to read cycles, to adapt to patterns written not on the earth but in the sky. The moon was their lantern, their clock, their silent ally. And so, night after night, generation after generation, they lived by lunar rhythm. Beneath its silver light, their legacy grew stronger, until one day their descendants would not only live under the moon, but dream of reaching it. Survival is never just about the present. For the small mammals of the Mesozoic, life was a song sung not only for today, but for tomorrow, and for the many tomorrows yet to come. Their story was not written in the roar of giants, but in the continuity of generations, the passing of knowledge, of instincts, of resilience. This was their dance across time. In the hush of burrows, a mother's care became the first lesson. Her pups, blind and helpless at birth, learned through touch, through warmth, through the rhythm of her breath. They grew beneath her shield, absorbing survival without words, how to huddle close when the ground trembled, how to still their movements when danger prowled above, how to listen with every hair of their whiskers. These instincts were gifts more precious than seeds or insects. They were survival itself, carried forward like invisible heirlooms. When pups grew strong enough to leave the burrow, they followed their mother into the uncertain night. Her movements became their map. She showed them where insects gathered, how to dig for roots, how to nose through leaf litter for hidden treasures. They stumbled at first, clumsy in their foraging, but she corrected with patience, a nudge here, a warning squeak there. Each small act was a torch lit in the darkness, a flame carried from one generation to the next. And as the young matured, they in turn would carve their own burrows, raise their own litters, and pass forward what had been given. In this way, across countless lifetimes, survival knowledge deepened like roots. The line did not break, it strengthened. Imagine the cycle unfolding again and again. The hush of the burrow, the squeaks of newborn pups, the cautious explorations into moonlit forests, the watchful eye of a mother guiding them home. Each generation overlapped with the next, threads weaving into a continuous tapestry of life. The dinosaurs thundered overhead, kingdoms rose and fell, storms and fires reshaped the land, but beneath it all, this quiet dance endured. Even beyond family bonds, the mammals' survival was a communal inheritance. The calls of warning in the night taught neighbors as much as kin. The paths worn into the forest floor guided more than just one family. The webs of connections stretched outward, tying one generation to another, until the entire hidden world hummed with memory. This continuity became the mammals' greatest strength. They were not simply survivors of their own day, they were guardians of the future. Each burrow was not only a shelter, but a classroom. Each pup was not only a child, but a vessel for the knowledge of countless ancestors. And in this way, the small mammals carried forward a resilience that giants could never match. Where the mighty rose and fell in cycles of dominance and extinction, the mammals endured, passing quietly from one generation to the next, each a step in the dance of time. So the dance continued, soft and unseen, yet unbroken, a rhythm of breath and heartbeat, of teaching and learning, of care and inheritance, a rhythm that has never stopped, not even now, as we look back across millions of years to glimpse its beginning. To live small is not to live without influence. The mammals of the Mesozoic, though overlooked in their own time, were builders in quiet ways, silent architects shaping their world grain by grain, root by root, unseen by the thunder of giants. Consider their burrows. These were not just shelters, they were entire microcosms. By digging into the soil, mammals turned the earth, mixing layers, loosening roots, allowing water and air to seep deeper underground. Burrows became sanctuaries not only for the families that carved them, but for insects, fungi, and seeds that found refuge in their walls. What began as safety became community. In every hollowed space, life gathered and multiplied. Even their foraging left marks. A mammal digging for beetles disturbed the soil, exposing it to sunlight, freeing spores and scattering seeds. Paws nosing through leaf litter broke down dead plants, hastening decay and enriching the ground. Without knowing, they were gardeners, tillers, caretakers of the forest floor. Some carried seeds in their cheek pouches, burying them for later meals. Many of those caches went uneaten. Weeks, months, even years later, sprouts rose from forgotten treasures, pushing through ash or soil, strengthening the forest canopy. A single mammal's meal became a tree's first root. A lineage of quiet gardeners stretched into future forests. Their waste, too, nourished. The droppings of small mammals carried nutrients that seeped into the soil, feeding mosses and fungi. Nothing was wasted in this cycle. Even their smallest traces echoed outward, enriching the web of life. And when they fell prey to hunters, their bodies fed more than tooth and claw. Insects, fungi, and soil reclaimed what giants left behind. In this way, the mammals gave themselves back to the earth, completing the loop they had helped to weave. Imagine walking through a Mesozoic forest in the aftermath of rain. The giants' footprints are everywhere, deep craters filled with water, lined with crushed ferns. Yet look closer. The soil has been turned by smaller pores, seeds scattered in tiny patterns, burrows dotting the roots of trees. Insects dart from hole to hole, moths flutter near sprouting shoots. To the untrained eye, it is chaos. But to those who look deeper, it is design, a hidden architecture written in silence. They were not architects in stone like future humans, nor engineers of rivers like beavers yet to come. Their architecture was softer, humbler, but no less enduring. The forests they helped to renew, the soils they turned, the seeds they spread, these became the foundation for worlds beyond their own. The dinosaurs roared and vanished, but the quiet shaping of mammals endured, whispering in the earth itself. Their architecture was not one of monuments, but of memory, a design written into soil and seed, carried forward through ages. In the end, perhaps that is the most lasting kind of architecture, not towers or thrones, but the unseen labor that sustains life. In this, the small mammals were not just survivors. They were creators, silent architects of a living world that would one day be theirs. The Mesozoic night was long, stretching over millions of years, yet even the longest night carries the promise of dawn. For the small mammals, their age in shadow was not an end, but a preparation. Every adaptation, every quiet act of survival was a whisper before the breaking of a new world. By now, generations had passed in steady rhythm, burrows dug, litters raised, seeds scattered, predators dodged. From a distance, it might have seemed as though nothing changed, as though they remained forever bound to the undergrowth while dinosaurs towered above. Yet subtle transformations were at work, the kind that only time itself can reveal. Their senses sharpened, whiskers grew more sensitive, ears more finely tuned, eyes better suited to the shifting patterns of moonlight. They became masters of nuance, hearing the rustle of a beetle under bark, catching the faint scent of rain before clouds gathered, feeling vibrations through the soil long before predators approached. These refinements were not sudden gifts, but patient inheritances passed across the thread of generations. Their bodies, too, whispered of futures to come. Some bore teeth designed not just for insects, but for seeds, fruits, even meat. Diversity blossomed in small ways, gliders in the trees, runners on the ground, swimmers in ancient streams. Where once they were uniform shadows, now they were many forms, testing many paths. Evolution's experiments quietly unfolded beneath the notice of giants. Even their rhythms of life hinted at tomorrow. Some species began to lengthen their periods of care, nurturing pups longer, investing more deeply in fewer young. This slow, careful strategy was unlike the multitudes of eggs scattered by reptiles. It was a gamble, but one that gave resilience. Pups raised in warmth and care were better prepared to carry survival into the future. And always, the night sky kept watch. The moon, the stars, the turning of seasons, these were the constants they measured their lives against. Each cycle endured, each generation survived, and though no creature could foresee what was to come, the small mammals were being readied in silence for the moment when their time would arrive. Imagine a clearing beneath towering conifers. The dinosaurs slumber, massive bodies curled in the shadows, but in the underbrush, a family of mammals stirs. A mother noses her pups forward, getting them through ferns wet with dew. Their whiskers quiver, their eyes glint silver in the moonlight. They are not aware of dawn. They cannot know the giant's reign will end. But they carry within them the quiet strength of countless ancestors, the whispers of survival etched in every heartbeat. The Mesozoic was not yet finished. Great upheavals lay ahead, fire from the sky, thunder from the earth, extinctions that would erase worlds. Yet when that breaking came, these small creatures, shaped by storms, sharpened by shadows, nurtured by generations, would step into the light. The whispers before dawn are soft, but they hold the promise of all that follows. And in the stillness of the Mesozoic night, those whispers had already begun. For millions of years, the Mesozoic seemed eternal. Dinosaurs thundered across plains, pterosaurs wheeled above seas, reptiles basked in the sun's warmth as though the world had been built for them alone. To the small mammals in their burrows, it must have felt as though this order would never end. And then, suddenly, it did. The breaking began in silence, a distant glimmer in the heavens, a stone hurtling through space. It crossed the void unseen, carrying with it the weight of endings. When it struck, the earth itself roared. The ground convulsed as if alive. Waves of fire swept outward, forests ignited, seas rose and crashed against the land. The sky was torn open, the air thick with ash and fury. Dinosaurs that once ruled without question stumbled into chaos, their world overturned in a single instant of violence. For the small mammals, this was terror beyond measure. Their burrows shook, ceilings collapsed, the earth cracked around them, yet within those tunnels lay their hope. While giants perished in the open, the mammals huddled in darkness, pressed close for warmth and breath. Their bodies trembled, but they endured. In soil and shadow, life clung to life. The days that followed were no kinder. Ash blotted out the sun, plunging the earth into a bitter twilight. Plants withered, insects dwindled, the great chains of life fractured. Hunger clawed at every creature. The giants built for abundance faltered in famine, but the small mammals, accustomed to scarcity, adapted. They dug deeper, sought hidden seeds, cracked open insects in rotting wood, scavenged what the fallen left behind. Where titans starved, the small survived. Storms lashed the earth, rains poured black with soot, the air itself grew harsh. Yet in the burrows, mothers still nursed their pups, fathers still foraged, young still learned the ways of survival. Their continuity, so humble and quiet, outlasted the fury of the skis. Imagine the world in those dim years. A forest reduced to skeletal trunks, the ground layered with ash, the silence heavy where once dinosaurs cried. And then a soft sound, almost too small to notice. The squeak of a pup, the rustle of fur in the undergrowth. Life, fragile but unbroken, whispering in the ruins of giants. This was the breaking of the world, not the end of life, but the end of one chapter, making room for another. The dinosaurs, rulers of ages, faded into memory, but the mammals, keepers of warmth, caretakers of burrows, gardeners of seeds, endured. In the ashes of destruction, their legacy began to shine. For the first time, they were not only shadows beneath giants, they were the inheritors of a wounded but waiting earth. The breaking of the world was not their downfall, it was their dawn. The world lay changed. Where once forests stretched in endless green, now stood plains of ash and silence. The skis, long darkened, slowly cleared, revealing the pale shimmer of stars, the steady glow of the moon, and at last, the return of the sun. Its rays fell upon a battered earth, broken yet breathing, scarred yet alive. From the ruins of the giants, the small mammals emerged. Their paws pressed into new soil, their whiskers quivered at the sense of a world reborn. They blinked against the daylight, for so long had they lived by night. And now, with the shadow of dinosaurs lifted, the world felt wide, open, waiting. They did not step forth as conquerors. They carried no thunder, no roar. Instead, they brought what they had always carried: warmth, care, resilience, patience. These were their gifts, honed in the shadows, now carried into dawn. New plants sprouted through cracks of ash, ferns, conifers, and flowers pushing toward the light. Insects returned in flitting clouds, fungi rose in hidden groves, rivers ran with renewed clarity. The mammals, small but steadfast, slipped into these new niches, exploring, adapting, growing. Some ran swifter, some climbed higher, some ventured into waters. Diversity unfurled like a banner, quiet but unstoppable. Imagine a meadow at sunrise, soft with mist. Where once the footsteps of giants shook the earth, now a different sound drifts through the air, the patter of small paws, the chirping calls of curious creatures testing the edges of their world. Mothers guide their young through tall grasses, fathers forage among seeds and insects. Their survival, once a whisper, becomes a song, soft, yes, but carried far and wide by time itself. And so begins their true story. From these unassuming survivors will one day rise the wide sweep of mammals, beasts of the forests, grazers of the plains, swimmers of the oceans, flyers of the skies. In time, from their lineage will come us storytellers by the firelight, remembering these beginnings in the hush of history. The Mesozoic closed with the roar of catastrophe, but the Cenozoic opened with the murmur of fur and heartbeat, of warmth and nurture, of creatures stepping from shadows into dawn. The dance of generations continued, not broken but reborn. And though the dinosaurs had ruled in splendor, the mammals would inherit the earth in resilience. The quiet ones, the overlooked, the hidden, they would become the architects of the world to come. The dawn belonged to them.